Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Porsche Masters Cup on this Monday night evening. You might recognize my voice from last season's British GT Championship, and, well, the reason is because I've had to come in on short notice to help out Mr. George Smith, who is unfortunately not going to be in the commentary box here this evening, but alongside me, as he was alongside George for the very first round of the Porsche Masters Cup and the entirety of the British GT Championship, it is Joshua Devonshire, and we're here a bit late, Josh, but we've made it in time. Qualifying has started, but no laps on the board just yet, and we're here at Donington Park.
No, absolutely, we made it just in time, and what a day to be at Donington. 6:03 p.m., just gone past 6 o'clock, and beautiful lighting, if I do say so myself, and it's looking to be an absolutely amazing session with these Porsches around.
Definitely is looking to be good, and of course we have the GT4s out on track first for qualifying. And it is Ty Jolly who'll be the first driver to put a lap up on the board, but that is immediately beaten by last week's winner, Andy Boardman, going up there with a 1:35.238, and then Andrew Pike coming in very, very close, just over a tenth of a second behind. Of course, just like last week, we'll have the GT4s out first, the Cup cars out second, and then, of course, it will be the GT3 cars coming out for the final 10 minutes of the session. So 30 minutes of qualifying here today, as it will be for the rest of the season. And Josh, I mean, as we start to see some of the laps come in here, what did you think of 30 minutes of qualifying, you know, should we say last Monday? I was going to say last weekend, but the weekend has come and gone now.
No, it's definitely interesting. It's a different dynamic entirely, but it's structured in such a nice way that you get to see the pace of all the individual cars as the session kind of progresses on. And if I'm not wrong, Caritas in the 124 Porsche, the 127, is that a GT3 that has set a time there?
That's Panos Caritas who's gone out, and they've set a time in qualifying which is dedicated to the GT4 cars. Now, as someone who is not a steward, obviously I can't dictate exactly what's going to happen, but from what I know of our live stewarding team and from what I know of the rules of this championship, that will be a qualifying disqualification, plain and simple. It's not just the fact that they're out there in a slot that does not belong to their car class. They've actually gone out and set a lap as well. So that, to me, looks like it's going to be a qualifying disqualification, but I'm sure we'll hear from our stewarding team fairly soon on that.
No, absolutely. Of course, the structure is very similar to last week, or it's the same as last week, where the GT. I think you actually just said, Ryan, with the GT4s heading out first. So, yeah, he's still going for it and impeding GT4s at the same time. So, it's going to be interesting to see what the stewards have to say about that. Still in provisional pole for the... there we go. There's the disqualification coming in there. In terms of provisional pole, that is still Andy Boardman. And Ryan, you were with me in the box when we were commentating on the British GT. For mispronouncing my T's there, but the British GT Championship, last championship that we did, and Andy Boardman put in a very, very strong performance there as well. So seems like things are progressing over to this championship as well.
Yep, things progressing fairly well for Andy Boardman. He's had a tough time out in some of these Monday championships. He's been around quite a few. McLaren Masters Cup comes to mind. The previous Porsche Cup as well comes to my mind as well. So Andy Boardman's he's had a lot of races out here in RCI, and particularly in the Monday series, and he has just been getting better and better. And of course, I mean, at this stage right now, won the race at Paul Ricard. He's looking to, throw down the gauntlet and be the man to win the GT4 class outright so far this season. Of course, the GT4 class is kind of broken down into three separate classes. It's got GT4 Pros, Silvers, and AMs, and unfortunately, they're not displayed in the server because of how the entry list is configured. but on the standings sheet that the drivers will be referencing, they'll be able to see which respective class they're in. But Andy Boardman's going for the overall title, and the closest man to challenging him for that overall title is Andrew Pike at this point in time, but finding himself 3.5 tenths off the pace in the OTL Racing Cayman.
No, absolutely, and not too much longer for the GT4s to actually set a time either. There's only 2 minutes and 20 seconds left on the board, and we're seeing Pike coming through. This is the chicane on the back straight, going down into the Melbourne Loop now. So he is currently down on his delta by a tenth, but that is currently rapidly increasing in time. Has he overshot the corner? He hasn't. He's managing the exit, but yeah, he is currently 4 tenths down, so this will not be the lap that he sets any kind of time challenging for provisional pole, but still enough time for 1, maybe 2 more laps.
Definitely enough time for 2 laps, if you can get the car around the circuit quick enough. Ty Jolly in 3rd place at this point in time, and you can see the rather large gaps between some of the GT4 cars, that kind of just emphasizing the class differences that we have here, where we have some pros, some silvers, and some AM drivers. But it's great to see them out all on track, and it is good to see some of the drivers that would usually be in some of the silver or AM splits getting some time out here to get familiar with the pro class, and of course the multi-class racing element of this championship, which is going to be a massive factor out here at Donington. It was a pretty big factor at Paul Ricard, with the fact that the Cup cars were quicker in a straight line than the GT3 cars on the Mistral Straight. Donington is going to be a bit more forgiving towards the GT3 cars. It's a much more of a focused circuit on keeping flow up and cornering speed, but I expect the Cup cars to still have plenty of pace around here. But overtaking and lapping cars in different classes is going to be an interesting challenge here today. And we saw GT3s versus GT4s here in the British GT Championship. We saw it twice, in fact. And 75 minutes of this race, I mean, you've got to think that surely, unless the GT3 cars have to pit again, that the GT3s will lap the Cup cars at some point in time.
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. I mean, the difference in pace is there, and the Cup cars don't have the straight line advantage like they did at Paul Ricard with the Mistral Straight. In fact, the longest straight really for this track is the it'd be the back straight, wouldn't it, heading towards the Fogarty S's. So it's not really enough of a chance for the Cup cars to stretch their legs, as we see them exiting the pit lane now on board with Mark Whitford, leading the pack for the Cup cars.
Yep, so Mark Whitford is one of the first drivers out on track, and in fact he is the first of the Cup cars. We only have 1 GT4 left out on circuit. I believe that's number 57, is it? And that is Andrew Pike, and in all of that we didn't actually realise Nico Kuzma has taken pole position in GT4 away from Andy Boardman by 15 thousandths of a second. So Andy Boardman will not take pole position in GT4. Andrew Pike's just invalidated his lap, so he will pull over to the side of the circuit and return to the pit lane. So that is the GT4 session done and dusted. Nico Kuzma and Andy Boardman will line up on the front row of that grid as we now get in to see the Cup cars out here on the track. And I very much know that this is one of George Smith's favourite cars right out here with the Porsche Cup car. And you know what, Josh? These cars where I had my commentary debut in sim racing, and you know what? These cars have a bit of a special place in my heart. But here comes Mark Whitford then, down towards turn 1. Nice and late on the brakes. Of course, no traction control in these cars. You have to be really, really careful coming out the slower corners. And there's a little bit of a snap and onto the dirt from Mark Whitford, but keeps it maintained. And now through Hollywood and down the Craner curves, he comes up towards, or down towards the old hairpin rather. Then past Starkey's Bridge and up through Schwantz. Needs to get the car turned in nicely here. Don't hit the bump on the inside of this corner. Use as much of the exit as you can. Up towards the blind crest. No planes flying over to land at the airport at this point in time. Mark Whitford really aggressive on the curbs there, but gets a decent exit out onto the back straight. Now weaving around just a bit. I wonder if this is just going to be a bit of a pull banker lap from him. Maybe just trying to get some more heat into those tyres, get them up to pressure quicker. Through the chicane he goes, not too bad. Now down towards the Melbourne loop. Nice and late on the brakes again. Gets a bit too deep, I think, into the corner. Compromises his exit slightly. But I don't think he'll be too worried about that. Just trying to get a lap on the board at this point in time. And this lap should still be valid as far as my timing board is concerned. Comes out the final corner, up towards the timing line. We'll find out what the lap is from Mark Whitford. It's a 1:29, but it's immediately beaten by Gergo Panka. It was a 1:29.8 for Mark Whitford, 1:29.6 for Gergo Panka, and then Mikael Sundström for the nearly on pace Porsche Cup comes out with a storming banker lap, 1:29.0.
Wow, is all I can say to that. I mean, half a second a lap quicker, and these are some quick drivers that have set banker laps as well. And I know, again, referencing the last championship we did, Ryan, I know Sundstrom had a bit of a hard time during that one. So maybe finally getting the good race that he needed, as Macaulay goes another half second faster than Sundstrom. And again, another very, very fast driver. He really kind of showed his pace last week as well. And I mean, there's still 6 minutes of the session to remaining for the Cup cars, so this is by no means the final order, but that's some strong performances right off the gate.
It is a strong performance straight off the gate, and it's another strong performance for the Blame Mike Jones team of Joe Macaulay out here in the number 18. He is the championship leader for the Porsche Cup class, and he's come out with a 1:28.560 for his first timed lap of the qualifying session, and Mike Noble is in second there as well, just a quarter of a second behind. And I mean, no matter how many times I see this roster of Cup car drivers that we have here in the Pro Split, it never ceases to put a smile on my face. Joe Macaulay, Mike Noble, Gergo Panka, Mikael Sundström, James Parker, Mark Whitford, Killian Ryan Meenan, Jesper Hillicalio. I mean, these are some of... You know, let's not beat around the bush. These are some of the most well-known names around the ACC community.
No, absolutely. 100%. You know, you see a lot of these drivers in a lot of different places, not just in RCI. And just to see them all in one place doing what they do you're right, it's completely amazing to watch. And it's quite an honor to watch them as well at times as well. It reminds me why I'm in the commentary box and not driving today myself.
Definitely so. A man that was in the commentary box for the SimGrid World Cup. The second season of that was James Parker, obviously not competing himself, but you know what? Just because he was sitting out for the commentary doesn't mean he's lost any of his pace. He goes second at this point in time in the qualifying session. Joe Macaulay did improve on his lap time to a 1:28.233. That means that James Parker's improvement is just good enough to keep him within a quarter of a second. Mike Noble, half a second down on provisional pole at this point in time, but he's up on this lap by almost 0.2 of a second. And the man that was so dominant in GT4 in British GT, the man that was so dominant in the last Porsche Cup that we had here at RCI, you wouldn't put it past him being able to throw that car on the front row for his class. He's on the back straight at this point in time. Lost a bit of time coming over the crest and then out onto the back straight. Comes through the chicane. Keeps the lap valid. Gains some time as well. 0.2 up as it stands. This would be enough to put him third. And if he can gain any more time, it would be enough to put him second. Not threatening Joe Macaulay's provisional pole lap time at this stage. Lost some time coming out of the Melbourne loop. Will come into the final corner now. Will he gain any time on the exit here? Gains on the entry, loses some on the exit. He will improve. He will go third provisionally. And with 3 minutes left of the session, Mike Noble still has a couple of opportunities to beat the likes of Joe Macaulay. But speaking of Joe Macaulay, he's going even faster.
No, absolutely. I wouldn't put that past him either. And a tenth of a second up on his delta coming out of the Craners. And no, it's looking to be a very, very strong. I guess a little bit sideways. Obviously, as you were saying before, these cars have no traction control, so you're steering with your hands and your feet at the same time. Just careful application of the throttle to try and rotate the car just enough, but not around completely. And I think he's done a bit too much of that. He's now down on his delta just a little bit, but still coming down the chicane now, so there's plenty of time to make up time, and that is exactly what he will do. But he will invalidate the lap in the process, just cutting a little bit too much of that inside. So this lap will be a bit of a dud, but he has a chance to put at least 1 or 2 more in before the end, before the GT3s come out.
The benefit that Joe McCauley has is that he has somewhat of a cushion, if you could call it, 0.2 of a second, protecting his provisional pole time from the second best time, which is that of James Parker. And you can see Joe McCauley there taking a very, very wide entry to maximize this front straight to gain as much top speed as he can. Coming onto the qualifying lap, you'll have seen George Boothby doing that fairly frequently, and you do see it around in the pro split. You don't see it too much in the silver and am splits. People don't tend to try and maximize the circuit and their qualifying as much as they can, but here in the pro split, a lot of drivers wanting to take advantage of all of the track, and it is a legitimate strategy and it is legal. And Joe McCauley taking full advantage of it, and he's up by 1/10 of a second at this point in time. Meanwhile, Lukajet making his way towards the end of the lap. He's not up on his time at this stage, but Mike Noble is up on his time as he makes his way through Sector 2. Joe McCauley has gone off the track, by the way, and into the barrier. That will be his qualifying session done, and Mike Noble's off and into the barrier as well. Almost in tandem, the 2 Porsche Cup cars go off, and that will be the end of their qualifying session. And dare I say it, Joshua, that's, well, the end of anyone's challenge for provisional pole, because it doesn't really look like anyone else has the pace to compete.
No, I'm willing to agree with that just a little bit. I mean, Panker put in a pretty quick lap, right off the gate as well. And I think he has improved on that during the session as well. It's not natural for him to. The car warms up, the tires warm up, and you go a little bit quicker each time. But yeah, no, I don't think he quite has the pace where he's about even with his delta at the moment. I don't think he's going to be able to find that 7/10 that he needs to catch up to the likes of Paul McCauley, Joe McCauley. And
McCauley.
I apologize. My brain just had a bit of a moment there, but yeah, no, correcting myself. Joe McCauley, I don't think he's going to be able to find that 7/10 at all, but he is looking like he's going a little bit quicker, but he's got a bit of a gap. He's got, what, a 3/10 gap to make up to take a look at 4th place, and he's not quite able to find that just yet. Looking down the field, drivers that are looking like they could move up is obviously Alexander Guglia. He's currently 3/10 up on his delta, and Mark Whitford is currently 0.13 up on his delta as well. So that would make that would put him up at least into the top 10, or top 10 so far, I should say. But Gogo Panka coming around the final turn now, and he is down on his delta, so there's going to be no change there according to my timesheet. But yeah, it doesn't seem we're going to see too many changes in position, Ryan.
Alexander Guglia, like you said, is up on his lap time. Everyone else is back in the pit lane. Alexander Guglia missed the first round of the championship as well, so he knows he has work to do, and qualifying at the back of the cup field is, well, not where he needs to be. Coming into the final corner now, up on his time, and my word, he's gained a massive amount of time through the final corner. What's it going to be? Comes across the line, gains almost half a second. That will throw him 10th in his class, a much better starting position than right at the back, but possibly a qualifying session for Guglia to forget. He'll hope for better in the race, but here they are. The GT3s are out on the track. You'll have heard the roars of that flat 6 engine as we were waiting for Guglia to finish his lap, and the big boys are out to play, and it's time to see what the GT3s can do. And we're on board with Jordan Forshux for the start of the GT3 qualifying session. 8 minutes remain from their 10-minute slot. And I guess the question will be, who is going to take pole position overall and in the GT3 class? Because we've got quite a few contenders, don't we, Joshua?
No, absolutely, and some really strong performances. So really big names here as well. I mean, and we saw for sure actually put in a really strong performance at Paul Ricard last week. Cody Pride, obviously a name very familiar. And Sky also put in a really strong performance last week as well. And if this is anything like last, we are going to see some battles, some right squabbles for the top spot front row of the grid for the entire race. Obviously, these GT3s being the fastest cars competing today. As we come around the Melbourne Loop now with Jordan and about to start the first flying lap.
I think this is actually his first. He's finishing his first flying lap at this point in time. I think they've already gone around, and it's a very short lap here. So yes, that is right. Full Shucks comes across the line, sets the first banker lap, but it will be immediately beaten by the likes of Seredi and then Jules Sky, one of the drivers that you did mention at the start. But Cody Pride, the championship leader, throwing down the gauntlet, a 126.013 to start the session. And we've almost broke into the 25s on the very first round of laps. And this man means business here today.
No, absolutely. And I can only see that time getting faster and faster. I mean, 8 seconds ahead of the fastest GT4 of Andy Boardman. So 8 seconds deficit on such a short track, that is actually kind of a little bit insane. And yet looking to go even quicker, a 10th up on their delta. And they're going to find time taking a little bit of grass on the inside there, but running a bit wide and still a 10th up. Didn't lose any time. Looks like they're gaining a little bit of time. It's hovering between a 10th and 0.11. A little bit hot going into the chicane though. Just loses it. Just such a difficult corner. And I think, Ryan, we're going to see some track limits for absolute certain in this race. It's so easy just to take a little bit too much. We saw it in qualifying and in qualifying with Macaulay. It's so easy to take just a little bit too much on the inside of both those, on both the entrances, on both the insides of the chicane, and it's just enough to invalidate the lap and just kind of ruin it until the next time round.
Yeah, Cody Pride just pushing the car beyond its limit, and the car snapping back. Gonna have to try again, but he does have some time out here. Adam Banfield, by the way, has gone provisional second in that very, very lovely default livery Porsche. I have to say that's one of the favorite default paints that I think the Porsche does have. But here is Jules Sky. This is the driver that was in pole position for the first round at Paul Ricard, and if I remember correctly, from what I was watching back, they got tangled up with a back marker of one of the GT4 cars, wasn't it?
They did.
In the race, and that cost them a few positions. Cody Pride is off the track again, by the way, after the chicane, so hasn't really had a great time of it.
Oh.
That was not a very good rejoin, and that was Cody Pride. And the stewarding team don't often have too much to do in qualifying, but they've already had to disqualify a GT3 for being in the wrong time slot, and I wouldn't be surprised if Cody Pride picks up a warning in qualifying for that rejoin.
No, absolutely. And considering that, on my timing sheet at least, Sky was looking to challenge for provisional pole as well, so that was a good lap that Cody Pride potentially infringed on. So, yeah, that was a little bit questionable, but as you said, stewards are a thing. They will be looking into that and deciding whatever action is appropriate for what we just saw. Joe Sky already 4/10 up on their delta, so I think if anyone could challenge for provisional pole this time round, I think it could be them.
Well, we'll have to see what the stewards have to say about that, and it definitely was a bit of a concerning rejoin, and Cody Pride obviously I don't believe it would have been done intentionally at all. Cody Pride not really that kind of driver, but obviously I think even Cody Pride maybe after realizing how close he was possibly to hitting Jules Sky might have just flinched a bit himself. in that moment, but we'll see how everything develops. Jules Sky is up on their lap time at this point in time, comes through the final corner, and how far further up the order will they go? They're 6/10 off provisional pole. They go 2/10 faster, and they will go on to the front row of the grid provisionally. It's not a great place to stop on the track to return to the pit lane, but doesn't seem to have hindered anyone. But the driver I'm looking at the moment, here it is, Adam Banfield coming up towards the timing line, goes quicker again, retakes that provisional second place. And if there's anyone at this point in time looking to threaten Cody Pride for that pole position in GT3, it's going to be Adam Banfield.
No, you absolutely kind of out of nowhere, and you are absolutely right. Very, very impressive time coming out. I suppose it goes to show just how impressive Cody's initial lap in the first place was. I mean, first flying lap almost into the 25s, and drivers are still finding that a hard time to kind of keep up with. So, but yeah, Banfield coming out of absolutely nowhere with that time, and Cody Pride also up in the Delta. I say how impressive that lap was, but looking to improve that even further if they can keep it under control this time round, and it looks like they absolutely will, but invalidating the lap in the process. So it's not going to happen this time around, but the time is most definitely there.
Time definitely is there. Just a case of whether they can find it or not. Cody Pride coming up towards the final corner. And this will be his last attempt at improving on that lap time. I did say that a 26.0 is a very, very good banker lap. He hasn't managed to beat it so far, and Adam Banfield's the driver that's got the closest to it, but still just under 0.2 of a second off that time. I would have been very, very surprised to have not seen. Oh, there goes Cody Pride, and that's it.
Oh, that was a heavy hit into the wall going through the crane. That wasn't through the cranes, that was through Hollywood, right? So, very, very heavy hit on the old hairpin. So, yeah, I think he had a bit of a moment going out of I think it was out of T1, and I think he ran just a little bit too wide, and he must have thought the lap was done at that point in time. So, it might have been a deliberate hit, but still, provisional pole settling off with, and Adam Banfield also going off and won't have any more time to set another lap. So Pride pretty comfortable in P1, it would seem.
Definitely so. Sebastian Luigi Vita is off the track as well, and just getting a little bit of a look here to Adam Banfield. Antonio Serradi back in the pit lane as well. So just a couple of drivers left on the circuit now. Emil Stancio and Benjamin Heilmann are the only two drivers left out on track. And that looks like it's going to be it. That's definitely going to be it for pole position in the front row of the grid. Emil Stancio and Benjamin Heilmann realistically not going to challenge. Stancio has pulled over, so it's just Benjamin Heilmann now who is left on a flying lap. And of course, didn't attend round one, but is here for round two in that lovely light pink and blue Porsche, Pink Elephant Racing. And of course, Benjamin Heilmann, a lot of drivers or a lot of viewers around here won't actually know who this person is, because we never refer to them by their actual name. We always refer to him as Stewie, one of our broadcasters here. And he's racing out in the Porsche Masters Cup, qualified for the Pro Split, and he comes out the final corner now. He's last at the moment in the GT3s, and he will remain last. Well, last bar Panos Karatas, who's at the back of the grid, but he will stay 11th. So that is the end of qualifying. Cody Pride will take the overall pole position and will line up on the front row of the grid alongside Adam Banfield. Jules Sky, Jordan Fashut, Sebastian Luigi Vita, Alan Knight, Olaf Leffe, Alexander Shrinkov, Antonio Serradi, Emil Stancio, and Benjamin Heilmann round out the GT3 qualifying. The Cup cars, it is Joe McCauley on pole position. James Parker will be alongside him. Mike Noble, Lukacek, Panka, Sundstrom, Hilacalio, Karsten, Ayrton, and Guglia round out the top 10. Killian Ryan, Meenan, and Mark Whitford missing out on a top 10 spot. That shows you how stacked this class is. And then Akart rounding out the Cup positions. And then finally, in the GT4s, who were out, well, 30 minutes ago, Nico Kuzma nicked pole position from Andy Boardman by 15 thousandths of a second. Andrew Pike, Kingston Lee, Ty Jolly, Baranowski, Gleason, Van Aken, Redford, and Valentine round out the top 10 with Phil Webb, Victor Vondra, Zoe Tang, Paul Reynolds, and Jakobsen to round out the complete field of cars here this evening. And now we await for the grid of 40 cars to line up for the start of the race, and we will switch to some lovely scenic pictures of the Donington Park circuit, and we'll get ready to show you guys the championship standings as well. So here we go then, championship standings for the Porsche Masters Cup in the GT3 class. It is Cody Pride that leads Corentin Burgess, 65 points to 61. Corentin Burgess not present here tonight. He's had to sign out. Lucas Rommel is third in the championship. He's not here tonight either, so two of Cody Pride's contenders not attending tonight. Jules Sky and Jordan Fichot in 4th and 5th place in the championship. Alexander Shinkov and Antonio Soredi in 6th and 7th. Adam Banfield, who qualifies on the front row of the grid here tonight, he's 8th in the championship, so he's got a great chance to pick up some very, very good points tonight. Olaf Leffe and Dominic Alvarez round out the top 10. Dominic Alvarez also not in attendance here this evening. The second page for the GT3 cars, Emil Stanciu with Sebastian Luigi Vita in 11th and 12th place. Alan Knight and Panos Karatas in 13th and 14th. And then it's Jack Young and Benjamin Heilman, both on 0 points, as neither of them were here for last week's opening race. And Jack Young is also not here for the second round either. So that is all two of their sign-outs used for the season. Meanwhile, in the Cup class, it is the Scotsman Joe McCauley that leads the way. 69 points, very nice indeed. Followed by Alexander Karsten with 58 points. Alexander Karsten not here tonight, so that's one of his big challengers out of the way this evening. Mike Noble and Killian Ryan Meenan, who finished 4th in Paul Ricard, is finding himself outside of the top 10 here in qualifying so far. Jesperi Hilacalio and Mark Whitford in 5th and 6th. Mark Whitford is from Northern Ireland, and I'm not quite sure why that flag isn't being displayed, but it's got the international flag there instead. Atabak Ayrton and Mikael Sundstrom in 7th and 8th place. Gogo Panka and Chris Rubelar round out the top 10 in the Cup class. Moving on to the second page is Atakan Akar and James Parker, who really didn't have a great result out at Paul Ricard. He'll be hoping for much better this time around. And then, of course, Lukaszek and Guglia did not attend the first round, but they are in attendance here tonight. And then the GT4s. Who could forget? Andy Boardman took the win out last week at Paul Ricard, and Andrew Pike is set to challenge him, as well as Nico Kuzma for the GT4 Championship. Thomas Baranowski and Matthew Kingston Lee in 4th and 5th. Joe Gleason and Stefan Van Aken in 6th and 7th. Ty Jolly and Vincent Valentine in 8th and 9th. And it is Michael Jubek who rounds out the top 10. But I believe Jubek is going to have to sign out of the championship, judging by what I saw earlier today. So that's quite unfortunate for him. Michael Redford, though, is in 11th, followed by Paul Reynolds and Phil Webb. Michael Jacobsen in 14th place. Zoe Tang, Victor Vondra, and Kyle Heidemann. Victor Vondra and Heidemann both on 0 points. And Vondra is here today, but Heidemann isn't, to my knowledge. So that'll be Heidemann's 2 sign-outs of the season used up. But those are the championship standings. And we will be getting into the race in just a short moment. I have been corrected by our producer, by the way. Alexander Karsten is here tonight. I was wrong on that one. I was thinking of someone else, so apologies for that. Alexander Karsten is here this evening. But we have just about a minute and 10 seconds until they pull away for the formation lap. So I guess it's time for everyone's favourite game, isn't it, Josh? who's going to be the winner here tonight?
Oh, it's going to be absolutely interesting. In fact, I was just about to bring up a point looking at the standings, because obviously the only track we have to go from reference is last week's Paul Ricard race. So I'm wondering, because I think at this point in time, at least with the people that I know, that Paul Ricard isn't necessarily the most liked track on the calendar. So I'm wondering
Really?
if, like, you're seeing drivers like Parker who seemed to struggle last week at the track, but then also now we're at a track where I think the opinion's a little bit different. People like Donington. So I'm wondering if that also explains a bit of a difference in pace as well. So it makes these predictions a little bit more interesting. I do think that Pride and Sky have a lot of pace in them, as we saw last week. But Banfield coming in with a really quick time as well. It's too early to make predictions. I think in the season, there's too many new names for me. But if I had to guess, Pride could run away with this one.
Well, Cody Pride would be one of the, should we say, the more obvious picks, I guess, if you want to put it out there. But obviously, there is a long way to go in the championship. Cody Pride does pull away to start the formation lap, by the way. I think, to be honest, though, looking at the grid here tonight, quite fancy that Adam Banfield could get amongst Cody Pride and maybe get a win on the board here today for the GT3 class. So if you're going to go with Cody Pride, I'm going to go with Adam Banfield. But what about the Cup class? And this is going to be a bit more difficult to assess, really. I mean, Joe McCauley, James Parker, Mike Noble, Lukaszek, Panker. I mean, who do we put down for the Cup class?
I'm not sure. There's some really, really quick guys here. I mean, Panker obviously put in a really quick time. Macaulay and James Parker and Mike Noble, that's a very strong top three. I think it's safe to say that whatever happens in this race, there's going to be a scrap between the top three drivers. I mean, these drivers are very quick, very almost evenly, even on pace as well. I mean, looking at the quickest laps, it's less than 2/10 separating them. So, yeah, I think we are looking to see something really strong happen with the top three.
And of course, can't forget the GT4 cars here this evening as well, with Nico Kuzma taking that pole position away from Andy Boardman. That solidifies that Nico Kuzma will be one of the main challengers for Andy Boardman in this championship. And don't forget Andrew Pike in there as well. Qualifying is not the be-all and end-all of a championship, and, well, that could not be more true in a multi-class series like this one. Plenty of action to go forward. Panos Karatas, by the way, if you're just joining us, is at the back of the field. He's in a GT3 car, but he's all the way at the back in 40th place overall because he was out in qualifying in the wrong slot. He was out in qualifying in the wrong slot by quite a margin as well, and was disqualified, so he's having to start all the way from the back of the grid. He saw this in Britain, typically, but it's so difficult to get past those GT4 cars earlier and keep up with the 3-pack. The problem that Panos Karatas has today is that not only does he have to get past the GT4s, he's got to get past the Cup cars as well. By the time he's done that, the GT3 field might just be a speck in the distance. But here we go then. 6:07 local time. And we are here to start 75 minutes of racing. By the time the race comes to its end, it will be sunsetting around here at Donington Park. But here we go then. Cody Pride and Adam Banfield on the front row of the grid, coming up towards the timing line, crawling away, and 75 minutes of racing here at Donington Park is go. And Cody Pride was well ahead of where Adam Banfield was supposed to be for the start of the race, but it's all worked out fine. No drive-through penalties coming through for anyone on the start. Adam Banfield will remain in second place coming out of turn 1. And now Jules Sky looks to take that place away from the likes of Fouchaux, and he will take it away as well. Jules Sky moves himself up from 4th into 3rd on the very first lap of the race, and we've had contact towards the back of the grid. Number 29 is off. And I believe James Parker may have been caught up in that as well. Yes, he has. The 888 is off. The 29 is off. And we'll get a bit of a replay to see exactly what happened here. Ooh, bit of a cluster catching up. Oh, James Parker just caught. Oh.
Yeah.
And that's such a shame.
Yeah, just caught at the wrong place at the wrong time. A lot of cars in one space and doesn't really, not necessarily enough room to fit. And that is, as you say, an absolute shame. Obviously, the predictions, I thought a massive battle for in the top 3 of the Cup car class, and that might have just made things a little bit more interesting for that to actually happen. Zoe Tang in the pits in the Cayman, and as we're watching Olaf Leffer now coming round into the going around the final turn actually, in the 308 Porsche, being overtaken, I believe, by I think that is the number 4 of Suridi, but. No, that is making a move on Alan Knight. I apologize. Again, not quite able to make anything stick going into the first turn, but what a first lap, Ryan. Oh, and contact!
Oh, and it's not over yet.
That's Leffer off.
That was Leffer off, and was that contact with Alan Knight? Just going to be checking here. That is Alan Knight just there. I believe it is the number 970. Oh, and that's into the barrier for Olaf Leffer. Oh, and that's going to be some serious damage on that car that will need to be fixed. James Parker, by the way, was just trying ever so slowly to get his car back into the pit lane. It is now back in the pit lane. We've got a couple of cars in the pit lane. Zoe Tang, James Parker, Nico Charisma, the GT4 pole sitter, in the pit lane as well. So there's been an incident with Nico Charisma involved as well. Chaos across all of the classes, it seems, on the opening lap, but the coolest man on the track right now is Cody Pride, 1.4 second lead. He's out in front. He's enjoying life so far in the first 3 minutes of this race, and he's thinking to himself, could every week go like this?
Absolutely, but first of all, he has to try and keep that pace as well. We saw him struggle a little bit in qualifying, so maybe there's some kind of demon with that car that might just show itself for the race, almost collecting, I believe, that was the lead GT4 of Nico Charisma coming out of the pit lane there, but just getting by just about safe. The GT3 is managing to get by absolutely fine as well. But yeah, all the predictions I think we had in terms of all the classes, I think that's all been blown out of the water entirely. But that's just going to make the rest of this race very interesting, and still an hour and 11 minutes to go. So for the drivers that have been affected, it's not over yet. There is time to catch up and see what you can make do of the situation. And a little bit of contact there between Alexander Sinchov and the 221 of Sebastian Luigi Vita. Just about holding on to it, keeping the car on the road, but very, very dicey.
Stewards aren't going to look favourably upon that one. Overtake with unnecessary contact. The stewards are going to have a fair amount of work to do after that lap 1 incident. We'll keep you up to date with whatever penalties and decisions come out of there. Benjamin Hellman getting called up as well, and the GT4 here and just trying to get out. And I believe there's contact there just behind Benjamin Heilman. They look to have all got away with it safely, but I think the GT4 car just holding up, was it Emil Stanciu, who pulled out, just had a little bit of contact with Benjamin Heilman. And here we're going to see it as well. Yeah, the GT3 tries to pull out, afraid of running into the back of the GT4, doesn't realise that they haven't cleared, or that Benjamin Heilman isn't clear of them. And that causes some contact. Fortunately, no massive damage on those cars, I wouldn't think. But my word, Nico Charisma, they haven't had a particularly great start to this race. We don't exactly know what happened with them, but they're already a lap down, and they're already being lapped by traffic, and they're in the thick of it now as well. Mikael Sundstrom, in all of this, is doing very, very well in the Cup class. He's up into second place. But Joe McCauley is doing very well in the Cup class as well, because he's got 2 GT3s between himself and second.
Absolutely, it's kind of strange seeing a Cup car so far ahead of just mixing in with the GT3s even. But this is quite a short track, so it's going to be interesting to see how long he can keep that spot forward. But I'd imagine that Heilman and Stenchu will be passing soon, if not just right now as the timing sheet updates. Sundstrom, could this finally be the race that he's been needing? As I mentioned before, he's had absolutely terrible luck in the previous championship, so maybe this could be the race he's been looking for. And I'd imagine he's going to take no gripes with second place, and that is a GT3 off the Melbourne Loop. Who was that? Looking through my field now, it was. I have no idea.
Antonio Serradi. It's the number 4 of Antonio Serradi. And what's happened to him down in here? Is this Alan Knight again? It is! The 970 turns the 4 around, and Serradi, you could see there he wants to get going, but doing the right thing, keeping the car stationary, make sure it's consistent, people can see where you are, and then once it's clear, gets going again. That's very good judgment there by Antonio Serradi to get going once it is safe. I think that's Mike Noble, is it, that was just in behind as well. He's had a shocker of a start to this race as well. And in the GT4 class, by the way, we haven't seen too much happening at this point in time. We only really know that Nico Grusberg got caught up in some form of incident early on in the race, but Andy Boardman's been caught out as well because he's way further down, and that means that Andrew Pike, Joe Gleason, and Thomas Baranowski are the top 3 so far for this race, and Andrew Pike has an incredible lead in GC4.
No, absolutely, and that is going to play so well in terms of championship points. Obviously, he is challenging, he's fighting with Boardman, and I can't imagine Boardman's too happy with being sent so far back. And Baranowski almost with contact there as well. He's looking on the inside. He's trying to make it stick. He backs out just a little bit, but it looks like he's going to have to settle back into a rhythm. But what a mad opening couple of laps. I mean, I can imagine as well in the incident regarding Knight and Serradi, I can't imagine the stewards are going to look very happily on Knight for that particular hit at the loop. Just going a little bit too deep there on the brakes, but
I think that's Lukaszek in the Cup car, yep, into the pit lane. That car had damage on it. James Parker, by the way, he's been in pit lane for a while, so either that's a lot of damage on that car, or, ooh, and this is Lukaszek in the replay, by the way, and that car is already damaged.
Yeah,
So
a little bit of ping pong going on there between the 3 cars. Joe Sky looking at making up some space as well, looking to make the overtake on to the Cup car ahead. Obviously, these guys are fighting for position, but different classes entirely. So Sky has been set so far back as well, and there's incidents left, right, and centre. I suppose it keeps the race interesting, but at the same time, it's not what you want to see.
it definitely isn't what you want to see, and Paul Ricard had a few antics going on, but I think the stewards are going to be fairly unhappy with what they've seen so far today. Mark Whitford off the road. This looks like a rather self-inflicted incident. Yep, and there we go. Did he keep that ball? Oh.
No, not quite. He almost caught it as well. I was spectating him a little bit during quali, and it seems like he was having a few issues with the car then as well. So potentially issues that are going to crop up during the race, and fairly safe rejoin. Plenty of space between him and the GT4 behind, but yeah, it looks like the car's very nervous and looks quite difficult to handle at the moment, as we're on board with Andrew Pike at the moment, leader of the GT4 with a 7-second lead, so fairly healthy. He looks like he's managed to keep himself out of trouble, at least for the most part, and if this continues, it looks like it's going to be quite a dominant race for him.
Meanwhile, I did mention penalties coming out later on in the race. The number 970, or car 970 of Alan Knight, 15-second penalty, and haven't quite got the reason for why that is at this point in time. Speaking of Alan Knight, I think he's just gone off into the wall, has he? I'm going to see a replay here.
I would imagine that 15-second time penalty was the incident with Serradi in the Melbourne Loop, which caused Serradi to lose quite a lot of positions to pretty much most of the Cup car class.
It's actually... Oh, yeah, that's into the wall, and that's some heavy damage as well. I've just got it through, by the way, here from Stephen DeVerst, race controller and head steward today. Car 970 spins over the curb in turn 1 and takes out car 308. That's Olaf Leffe, so that's for the turn 1 lap 2 incident that we saw way earlier on. So that's a 15-second time penalty for that incident. But there is another incident coming later on that we do know about, and actually that one has already been assessed. Incident on lap 3, turn 8. In fact, no, that's turn 8. That's the wrong corner. So that's a different incident. Sorry, we don't have the incident yet between Alan Knight and Antonio Serradi. That one will be coming then later on. But 15-second penalty already for Alan Knight. I imagine he's going to get another penalty for that Serradi incident as well. Meanwhile, Benjamin Hellman, who didn't attend race 1, he's kept himself out of trouble relatively, and he's up into 6th place at this point in time, and possibly challenging Sebastian Luigi Vita for 5th. And you know what? If you had to miss round 1 and you've come out here into round 2, getting yourself well in and amongst a battle for the top 5 is one of the best ways you can kickstart your championship. He's having to defend from Emil Stanciu here as well, into the chicane and the outside line from Emil Stanciu from Racing Line Motorsport. Unconventional, but worked either way. And a fantastic overtake from the 191.
No, absolutely. He left just about enough room, about as much room as you need to within the rules, and just squeezing themselves through. And that means that Hellman has a bit more work to do to try and reclaim that speed, but reclaim that game, that space. But it seems like he does have the pace to do it. He was getting quite fighty with Vita, so I'd imagine we're going to see something very similar very soon on Stanciu, as we see Cody Pride, leader of the race so far, by as 4.6 seconds according to the timing board, maintaining a bit of a gap with a few cars between himself and Adam Banfield. So seems to be that I had a prediction that he might run away with it, but given the field at the moment and how tightly packed it is, looking at the track map, there's all cars of all different classes on pretty much everywhere except on the run down to the Melbourne Loop. Anything can happen so far, as we see Mark Whitford in the pits, and it looks like he's very early in the pit lane. There we go. There he is, just teleported back to the box. So I wonder if that is damage from the crash earlier, or whether he's just parking the car and calling it a day.
Casualties all around here, it seems, in the different classes. Not really what we want to see. We're not even 15 minutes into the race. Meanwhile, Alexander Karlsson is looking to challenge Mikael Sundström for 2nd place in the Cup class. At this point, 2.7 seconds separate Sundström from Macaulay. And Mikael Sundström just going to see if he can keep in touch with Joe Macaulay at this point in time and keep Alexander Karlsson behind him. Looking at their lap times at this point in time, Joe Macaulay was quicker. But it all depends, I guess, on traffic as well. And traffic is going to play a much bigger part earlier on in this race due to the fact that we're at a much smaller circuit than Paul Ricard, and the incidents that we've had early on here well and truly have spread out the 3 classes at this stage in the race. We have some GT3 cars behind Cup cars, and the GT4s all seem to be, in terms of overall positions at least, where they should be. And Andy Boardman recovering from his poor start to the race, trying to get around the likes of Michael Redford, and will get around the likes of Michael Redford. Now has Shinkov. Well, not Shinkov, Shinov.
Yeah, just almost holding Shinov up just a tiny little bit, but an absolutely textbook move from Boardman, making his way back up through the GT4 field in the number 69 Porsche. And again, you have to understand just how quick Boardman has been through this series so far, and obviously qualified on qualified P2 even, and just trying to reclaim that space, you know, from the incidents earlier on in the race. As we see, Karatis also making very, very good pace considering the incidents around them. They started last on the grid, all things considering, with the disqualification for being not on the track at the correct time. Is he going to start making a look at Serradi onto the Melbourne Loop? I don't think he's going to quite have the space to do it, but as the cars space out, there might be an opportunity coming really soon. Serradi very late on the brakes, almost taking out Gergo Panka in the Cup car, but seems to be that the Gergo Panka is basically holding Serradi up just a little bit, and that could drop them into the clutches of Karatis. Gergo Panka letting them through, almost making contact into T1. Are we going to see an incident very similar to what we saw before? No, we are not, but Panka will be putting the car in between the 2 GT3s that are currently fighting for position. And Caritas will be just trying to look and trying to find a way around. And is he going to make it through the cranes? I don't think he will, but it's only a matter of time.
If there's anyone asking themselves the question, why is Gogo Panka not moving out of the way? Well, the reason is he doesn't have to. This is an overall position, as you can see on the relative. When Antonio Serredi got past, Gogo Panka has no reason to just move out of the way. Not that you do that typically when you're blue flagged anyway. You're just told not to defend. But Gogo Panka has every right to fight for his line and fight for his position because it's an overall place. It doesn't mean anything in terms of points. It realistically doesn't really gain you anything, but he's under no obligation to move out of the way, and eventually Caritas does get through on Gogo Panka, but by the time he does so, Antonio Serredi's put a GT4 car between himself and Caritas, although Caritas will quickly dispatch that GT4 car and re-establish the battle with Serredi ahead. Emil Stanciu making his way through on some GT4 traffic as well. Chasing down is that likes of Sebastian Luigi Vita, and here is Alexander Karsten all over the back of Mikael Sundstrom, and this creates problems for the likes of Olaf Leffe, who's trying to get around these guys. But this is another situation. These guys are racing for position in class, and this is an overall position battle as well. These Cup cars have no obligation to move out of the way for the GT3, and Olaf Leffe, he's just sat here to suffer at this point in time as he watches Karsten try and find a way through. On Mikael Sundstrom has a look on the inside, not quite able to do so. Leffe will finally find a way around the outside of Karsten, and now he's going to have to hope he can get past Mikael Sundstrom fairly timely as well.
Oh, absolutely, almost going 3 wide through there as well, and absolutely, you're right. With this being fight for position, the Cup car's under no obligation, and to be completely honest, I think if I was a Cup car in this situation, I'd be relishing the fight between myself and the higher class of the GT3s. It's not often you actually get to fight wheel to wheel or see them fight wheel to wheel, but it shows the difference for us at least watching. It shows the difference in pace. We actually get to see the cars side by side, and it goes to show the Cup cars are no slouch, really. I mean, they are holding their own in some places. I've seen Sundstrom has dropped a place, but it is coming behind one of the GT4s, and the order is starting to kind of equalize out. But that is a GT3 behind them, I believe. And oh, the GT3 almost avoided just about actually the Karsten almost making contact with the GT4 there as well. Just had to make a very quick adjustment and evasive action going down the start finish line there, and just about making the move stick on going down to T1.
Well, you can't say there hasn't been action so far in this race, and that's exactly what we'd hoped for with the Porsche Masters Cup. Paul Ricard delivered a fairly enjoyable race, and Donington Park, despite some of the accidents, relishing the action here as well, and it's not going to stop because Emil Stanciu is now on the back of Sebastian Luigi Vita. This is the fight for 5th place in the GT3 class, and Emil Stanciu that started further back towards, well, the end of the GT3 pack, now looking to get 5th place.
It just goes to show that if you don't have the greatest qualifying session, anything can happen in the race and you can make up positions. It's definitely been, as you said, it's definitely been quite eventful, a little bit quite chaotic, I think is the right word for the race so far. And Heilmann still hanging on to the back of Stanciu just about. I mean, Stanciu pulling a little bit of a gap, but I imagine fighting with Vita would also be slowing the pair down as well, which might allow Heilmann to catch up just a little bit and brings them into the fray as well. A lot of cars on the start-finish line right now, and I believe that it's one of the Cup cars trying to make its way around a pack of the GT4s. Joe Gleason having to defend against Alexander Guglia. Guglia getting past. Actually, no, I believe that is a blue flag car anyway, so a lot going on. Vincent Valentine going side by side with, I believe that will be Gleason. That is Gleason. So this is a fight for position. I apologize. There's so many cars at so many different stages in the race. It's hard to keep up with who is who and where
this is the problem with Porsches. They all look the same.
they all look similar. They all got the engine in the wrong place. So.
Oh dear! Don't let George Smith hear you say that. But the battles continue on here. Joe Gleason defending as much as he can from Vincent Valentine, and oh, Oh, there's contact!
Oh, that's heavy. That's a
Oh,
lot
and
of cars
chaos.
involved there.
Atabek Ertan is in the gravel. Joe Gleason was off the circuit. Andy Boardman was caught up in all of that as well. Here's the replay, courtesy of Jake Coombs here tonight. And how did this all go wrong? Let's see. Up on the inside. Oh,
Oh, no.
Very poor from, who was that? Number 14. That was Atabek Ertan in the Porsche Cup car. Was never going to make that corner with Joe Gleason there. And, unfortunate incident there. That will be a fairly slam dunk penalty, I believe, from the stewards as well. We'll get another perspective here. You can just see
Just way too deep.
late. And then, of course, that meant that Vincent Valentine had to brake, and on top of all that, Panos Karatas had to brake, and then I don't know, I think I was Hilicalio taking to the grass, was it? There was so much going on. And
Yeah.
I would hate to be the stewards having to dissect those incidents. And speaking of incidents, the reports are coming back through. By the way, we did see the penalty handed out to Alan Knight earlier on in the race. Most of the incidents that have come through now have just been racing incidents or warnings up until this point, which is kind of good to see that despite the fact... Oh, and there goes Van Aken. Despite the fact we have seen quite a few incidents, the majority of them have either just been slight contacts that are worth a warning or racing incidents / no further action. Only one penalty out so far.
No, absolutely, and I just noticed the 420 Porsche, the team binning it, so living up to its name right there. You can't say they haven't lied to us, Ryan. So, but they'll be looking
consistent, if anything. Ooh, almost went for another spin.
Absolutely, in racing, it's important to be consistent, but when it's consistent, in my case, when it's consistently terrible, you kind of have to rethink your position. But they'll be making up time after that spin as well. A lot of action going on. The 22 Cup car trying to make a move on the 899 of Mikael Sundström for second place in class. So very high up the rankings considering the Cup cars at the moment. Benjamin Hellman has caught up to the back of Stanciu as well. I mean, it seems to be that the fighting between Stanciu and Vita has allowed Hellman to catch up, as I predicted. But can Hellman find a way through? Can he find a gap? Is there a space big enough for him to park that Porsche and try to find their way around? I mean, let's not forget that Hellman was taking a look at the inside of Vita as well whilst Stanciu was getting past. So I think it's going to be a very, very tough battle for the positions between 5th and 7th.
Definitely looks like it is going to be close, and Benjamin Hellman, this is exactly what he needs at this point in time. Just needs to see two drivers up in front having a battle, holding each other up, allowing him to close in on them, and then of course pounce if possible, or wait for an incident and pick up the pieces. Being careful and taking advantage of other people's mistake is a crucial part of racing, and I'm sure that Benjamin Hellman would love to make up a couple of extra places here. This is Michael Redford and Joe Gleason going side by side here. And is Redford going to get the place done? No, it doesn't look like it, because Joe Gleason had the better exit onto the back straight and then coming into the chicane here. Unless Michael Redford's going to brake much later than Joe Gleason, this should be fairly simple, and Joe Gleason does maintain his position of 5th in class over Michael Redford. The battles going on all around the circuit at this point in time, and there aren't many drivers at this stage in the race who aren't involved in a battle, but one of those drivers is Cody Pride, 9.1 seconds up the road. He's loving it around here at Donington Park.
No, absolutely. He's just running away with it, and it seems to be he's making very short work of the traffic as well for the PPR Esports number 1. Very apt number, Porsche 911 GT3. It's coming to a pack of the GT4s at the moment as well. A lot of these cars are showing some sign of damage as well, but given the race so far, it's hardly surprised. There's still 15 minutes of the race left to go. We're not even at the halfway mark, and there's been more action than you can shake a stick at so far. To see a recovering Joe actually, no, he's not recovering. He is just in first place for the Cup class, and he is again making his way through traffic. And I believe that is the GT3. That is I think that is Leffer. He is also recovering from the incident with Alan Knight as well from earlier in the race. So Leffer, not the last GT3 car in the field. However, has some ground to make up, as Andrew Pike, again, another dominant leader so far, 13 seconds ahead of Kingston Lee. So Boardman did get a little bit of a tangle as well. He is only 11.299 seconds away from second place, so he is also recovering. And it seems to be a little bit going 3 wide into the Fogarty S's, and
there goes Joe Gleason.
Joe Gleason, Redwood finally getting around, and Gleason left with, I think there was space, but very difficult to judge. I mean, especially from his perspective, he breaks super late, gets a little bit cut off, and maybe just outbreaks himself just a little bit and has to take avoiding action.
Yeah, that was Vincent Valentine up in front as well. And he made a slight mistake, which has allowed Michael Redford to gain 2 places in the space of, well, 2 corners. And Michael Redford will like that plenty. Alexander Karsten just getting a bit out of shape there again. We'll go on board here, and you can just see, this is why you don't get on the grass over here. Ooh, well saved though. Have to give credit where it's due. Very well done by Karsten to save that. And now, I did say that Alexander Guglia would need a much better race than he had in, than what he had in qualifying, and he's having a much better race than what he did have in qualifying. And Alexander Karsten is now in a nearly on-pace sandwich at this point in time.
No, absolutely, and they seem to be absolutely on pace for where they need to be. Pardon the pun, and yeah, just Sky in the 601. Catching up to the back of the likes of Hellman. I mean, taking chunks of time. Obviously, we saw Sky have a really strong qualifying in both tonight's and last week's session, so we know that Sky has pace. And that's going to be 4 GT4s in a row, so there's going to be a huge battle. I thought it was going to be between 5th and 7th, but let's add that to 8th as well. So, on the back of Luigi Vita's car at the moment, and see just how close Stancio was getting under braking there. So it's all going to come down to who can hold the car in traffic the best. Obviously, you do not want to be in the middle of this pack because you kind of have to react to the cars in front and behind you. So Stancio and Hellman's position is not to be envied, but can they make something work of it? Alexander Shinov is making his way through, making their way through the through another pack of GT4s. I believe this will be traffic, understandably, but with a 5-second time penalty as well. And I don't have the chat open to tell me exactly what that was for, but I'd imagine it's in terms of driving standards to some degree. So maybe there was an incident that they were involved in, and that is what the time penalty was there for.
Well, Shinov coming out with that time penalty. I'm sure we'll get an update in a moment from our stewarding team. I can imagine the stewarding team are fairly busy at this point in time. There are still a few lap 1 incidents being judged, but they are getting through them as best they can. And have, what was it, 6 stewards here tonight?
I've just read it. Ryan, 5 seconds for car. Sorry for interrupting you there. 5 seconds for car 19. Aggressive overtake. 19 dives on 970 and mixed contact. So that would be the reason for the 5 seconds.
That's fair enough, I suppose. And 5 seconds. It's it's just one of those penalties, isn't it? Most of the time, you see a 5-second penalty pop up, you're like, it is what it is. It's obviously the most lenient penalty the stewards can give out. And overtaking with contact, typically 5-second penalty is enough to overturn whatever was lost by the car that was innocent in that situation. Meanwhile, down towards the final corner, Sebastian Luigi Vita's off the circuit. And that allows Emil Stancio to go through, that allows Benjamin Hellman to go through, that allows Jules Sky to go through as well. And slight bit of contact there. And then Sebastian Luigi Vita way too late on the brakes, anticipating that he'd have to dive on the GT4 cars. Wasn't the case. And he's lost 3 positions in 1 corner. And he was already bleeding time as it was, just trying to defend from some of those cars. And now he's lost all 3 positions in 1 go. And that's a massive blow to Sebastian Luigi Vita. Meanwhile, stop and go 10 for Nico Kuizma in the number 7 GT4. That's
That
a
is-
big. That's the biggest penalty the stewards can deal out. That is a significant. So what is this? This is lap one,
T4.
turn 4. Car 32 is involved with car 7. Car 7 takes out 32 and takes out another 5 cars, 69, 57, 332, 171, and 49. So one incident there caused by Nico Charisma takes out 5 cars in the process, and, well, stop and go 10 is fairly slam dunk there.
That is huge, but it was a huge incident. I mean, look at how much it's changed the field. I mean,
That's Mike Noble
losing it. Mike Noble losing it on the exit of on the exit there, and just again a little bit too much power. The lack of traction control kind of showing its face. You put one wheel off, and it's so easy to just lose the back end. And of course, with the Porsche, the engine in the back, it acts as kind of a pendulum. If you don't, it's not got all that much step angle. So if you start losing it, there you go. One wheel on the grass, and that is all that it takes.
Remember in qualifying, we went on the onboard, so I said, do not go wide on the exit of that corner. Use as much of the curb as you can, but don't touch the grass. It is lethal, and especially in these cars with no traction control. There goes Mike Noble again. Don't touch the wall. The gravel does its job. And that looks like straight back to the pit lane for Mike Noble, and, well, that's, unfortunately for him, a very good chance of some solid points today going down the drain. Parked it, returns to the pit lane, and, well, as Joe McCauley will probably be saying to himself at this point in time, wherever he is, another one bites the dust.
No, absolutely, but we're only, well, as I said, we're approaching, if not just nearly, just about at the halfway mark for the race now, and you're seeing all these changes in positions. It just goes to show that even though the packs of cars do seem to be kind of sort of spacing out and settling into the kind of rhythm that you'd expect. Again, as I keep saying, anything can happen, especially in just 40 minutes remaining. Alexander Guglia trying to look at maybe making a move on Karsten and the 22 Porsche, but Karsten in turn trying to make a move on Sundstrom, and Guglia almost making contact with Karsten there in the braking zone, just going a little bit too deep, and that is going to allow Sundstrom to make a little bit of a gap. Guglia maybe thinking about taking a look there, but a little too far back, heading down towards T1, and seems to be he's lost a little bit of time to Karsten there.
This is what you love to see as well. 2 teammates, one on either side of a car in the middle, a sandwich, as I said earlier, the nearly on pace sandwich. And Mikael Sundstrom will be liking this as well, because Guglia is putting pressure on Karsten. That's helping him. And I suppose the long-term goal for both of them is to hope that Karsten makes a mistake, or that Guglia can force an overtake through on Karsten and they can get both cars on the podium. I think a win at this point in time is a bit out of range for the likes of Mikael Sundstrom or Alexander Guglia. Joe McCauley up the road by about 15 seconds.
No, absolutely. But as you say, these are some very prominent names that we've seen in this race so far, and I think it's not inappropriate to say that we've seen some Titans actually fall pretty hard so far. And again, we've seen a lot of these Cup cars, they have kind of managed to turn it on corner exit. That is Leffer. I think he has just made a move onto Vita, so he has just gotten by through the Melbourne Loop there. But yeah, we have seen a lot of these Cup cars manage to turn it on their own accord. So if McCauley makes a mistake...
Oh, and here comes Karsten on the inside into the Melbourne Loop, and he's going to get the move done. Sorry to cut you off there, Josh, but Alexander Karsten up into second in the Porsche Cup class. Alexander Guglia had a look on his teammate as well in the process there. And the nearly on pace strategy immediately down the drain now, and well, the first thing that comes to my mind is, will there be team orders? I can give you the answer. No, there won't, because Mikael Sundstrom and Alexander Guglia, they'll love a good scrap together, but Karsten
making a mistake.
He makes a mistake, and now it's returned to status quo. We're back to square one. Can Guglia find a way through on Karsten now? He has to go defensive. And Guglia trying to force the issue now. This is where you want to pounce. This is where you want to be at your best. As soon as they've made a mistake, get them when they're vulnerable. The GT4 in the middle here as well, just trying not to get caught up in this battle, but I believe it's all petered out now. And what looked like a massive opportunity there for Alexander Karlsson to start to pull away from Mikael Sundstrom. One mistake, and we're back to square one.
Seems to be these cup cars are very, very hard to drive around here, especially. I mean, it's not the widest of tracks, and you want to maximize as much as you can on corner exit, and that's where we're seeing a lot of these mistakes currently being made. Andrew Pike, again, very, very comfortably in the lead. Killian Raiminen in second place. Actually, no, Killian Raiminen is in the cup car, sorry. But again, in pits. I wonder if something has happened there. Kingston Lee in second place and Boardman in third. So Boardman is a good amount behind Kingston Lee, it would seem. 135 seconds.
Oh no, it has updated now. I was just about to say that doesn't seem right. That would be over a lap down around here at Donington Park, and I think the reason is Killian Raiminen's car, because of where it's positioned in the pit lane, it's kind of acting as a pseudo timing line at this point in time, and I think it's not counting things properly. That was Vincent Valentine, who was just off and didn't take anyone out in the process there. Comes back on the track safely, but has lost a position in the process. And you can just see here, as soon as he went off here, I was terrified that he would come back on and take someone out, but no. Hits the brakes, goes off, rejoins very safely, and only loses one position out of that. That could have been much, much worse for the 667 in that situation, but well done to prevent an incident there. But this man here, Cody Pride, I mean, I'll use a term that George Smith once used in a Porsche Cup race to describe Mike Noble. Disgusting. Disgustingly good.
No, absolutely. He just put the car in first place and just drove off with it. It doesn't even look like he's been pushing all that hard. He's just managed to keep his nose clean and just keep the car out of trouble. And that, again, sometimes that's all you need. I mean, I'm not saying the guy doesn't have pace. He obviously does. I mean, obviously pole position in qualifying, and currently a best lap of a 126.8. So that is the quickest lap of the race we've had so far by some margin, actually, by almost half a second according to my timing sheets. But yeah, he's just able to just find the pace in the car, keep the nose clean, and it's just the perfect combination that you want. And he's dealing with traffic absolutely amazingly, not put a foot out of line. You cannot fault him. And as a result of that, he is 15 seconds up the road from Adam Banfield, who is already very, very quick in themselves. Another 5-second time penalty has just been thrown out for Vita as well in the 221 GT3. So I'd imagine we get the notes on that as soon as we do, and we will let you guys know.
In fact, we actually do have them right now. It's actually for an incident on lap 1, turn 2, so they're still looking into a couple of lap 1 incidents. And 221 hits car 308, and 308 is Olaf Leffert. Olaf Leffert's had an unfortunate race today. He's been on the back end of a few incidents that weren't his fault, but that was an overtake with contact, and that's a 5-second penalty coming out the way for Sebastian Lucivita. Is this the replay of that incident in tow? Yeah, just pushes him onto the grass just a bit there, and causes Olaf Leffert to lose a couple of places. But Sebastian Lucivita now behind Olaf Leffert, but he has that 5-second penalty anyway. A couple of other 5-second penalties coming out, by the way. Number 35 has been given a 5-second penalty for tapping the 742 and spinning them around on the exit of turn 10. Alan Knight got their second 15-second penalty of the race for the incident with Antonio Soredi into the Melbourne Loop. So we did see the conclusion, the result of that incident there. So he's got 2 30-second time penalties, but sitting in the pit lane at this point in time. Andrew Pike's got a 5-second penalty as well. The number 57 had contact with the number 69. So championship leader touched with number 57. Only enough for a 5-second penalty, though. So just a slight incident, maybe an overtake with contact. And that was enough to award Andrew Pike a 5-second penalty. Doesn't really mean anything at this point in time in the race. But interesting to see a 5-second penalty come out there. But as you were talking about Cody Pride earlier, and how good his race has been so far, think about how much better this race is going to be for his championship points as well. No Corentin Burgess, no Lucas Rommel here tonight. 2 of the top 3 not here tonight. Jules Sky, who is in 5th place and has had an incredible recovery, was challenging for 3rd place on the very first lap. So, you know, Cody Pride's got, you know, this race is going all his way at this point in time.
Oh, absolutely. See Carsten making another mistake, going a little bit too wide into T1 under pressure from Cody Pride, even though there shouldn't really be too much pressure there because different classes and on different laps entirely, not in the same race, but seems to be that Cody Pride is going to be a little bit held up. Is he going to be able to get rammed? I'd imagine that he will. He's been dealing with traffic absolutely amazingly so far. And is that Kirsten in front of Sundstrom that I see?
It is. Kirsten has got past Mikhail Sundstrom. Googlia in the background has Cody Pride just coming through on him. But Karsten has found a way back past Mikhail Sundstrom. We didn't see that. But he has finally got himself up into 2nd place and looks like he's in 2nd place for good this time. Meanwhile, Baranowski on the back of Joe Gleason, but Baranowski has that 5-second penalty. So once he gets ahead of Joe Gleason, he'll have to create 5 seconds of space between himself and Joe Gleason for that position to count. And they're currently fighting over 4th place in the class. And ooh, Joe Gleason probably won't be too happy about that Cup car having a little look up the inside and then maybe not committing to the move. But Thomas Baranowski won't care, and he's going to take that place willingly.
No, absolutely. I mean, you see a car go off in front of you or go wide, and I take absolutely full advantage, especially when you have the 5-second penalty as well. Actually, that leads on to a theory I actually wanted to discuss with you for a second, Ryan, because obviously Donington, it's very easy to incur track limits. If you get a 5-second penalty, do you think there's more of an inclination to push just that little bit harder and increasing the risk of getting that 5-second penalty, and then therefore the 5 seconds then turns into something much bigger? Or do you think it's enough of a time penalty that it's easy just to kind of settle into a rhythm with and just kind of accept?
I think with a 5-second penalty, most of the time you kind of just blank it out. You know, you look at it, you go, 5 seconds, it's whatever. A lot of these guys, a 5-second penalty is nothing to them. And we're seeing a replay here. Oh, is this Baranowski going off? Yes, it is. At turn 1, that allows Joe Gleason to just go back through, and Joe Gleason will happily take that, knowing that Baranowski has a 5-second penalty. And Baranowski now has all the work to do again. But yeah, just to mention back on that point, I think a lot of these guys just blank out a 5-second penalty as if it's not there. I think once you get to like a 15-second penalty, that's when these guys really do start to be like, oh, come on now, you know, need to pick up the pace, need to push a bit more. But something interesting, with almost 45 minutes of this race gone, we haven't seen any drive-through penalties yet for track limits.
No, we absolutely haven't, and
it'll be interesting to see if that holds true for the next 31 minutes, though.
I do wonder how many drivers have incurred enough of the warning points to start thinking, hey, I best start calming down with that chicane over there and see for sure. Just who's it on the back of at the moment? It looks like it is Seredi on the back of Seredi now. So yeah, that is absolutely confirmed. He's on the right on the back of the number 4. And again, Fouchard had a very strong qualifying as well, starting in the top, with the it was in P4, P5. So seems to be that he's also making up some ground. And in P3 we have Shinov as well. So it's Stanshu has been promoted to 4th place somehow in all of this. Stanshu was in P5 for the longest time. So are we missing anyone from the top 10?
At this point in time, well, Karatas is in the pit lane. Oh, Karsten's gone around. I've just seen that on the down at the Melbourne Loop. Alexander Karsten's gone around, and that's not just allowed Mikhail Sundstrom back through. That's also allowed Googlia through as well. We'll see here on the replay. And yeah, just loops it. Oh, those are the frustrating ones.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you know that's all on you. And
Oh.
there's no one else you can blame for those kind of incidents. And oh, that's a massive shame for Carsten. I did say he'd got himself up into second place for good. Now he's back down into fourth, and he has to do it. It's all over again, but he has to get past Guglio as well this time. Meanwhile, in GT3, Seredi and Forshooks fighting side by side. And what's going to happen here? Oh, slight contact as they get past Andrew Pike, the leader in GT4. Forshooks is going to have the inside line, and this is going to be moved on. Yes, it is. My word. They're making this all very, very edge of the seat kind of thing over here. As 15-second time penalty coming out the way of kart 56. That's the Esprit Helicalio, who is 17th overall at the moment. He's in the Porsche Cup class.
And 56. Do we know what that was for? I mean, my note sheet is being updated, and yes, car number 56.
171.
Sending both cars off track. So, I believe, was this the
171 is Zoe Tang.
So
that's one of the GT4 drivers. Oh,
that makes just way too excitable trying to get through there, and that was huge. And that's a 10-second penalty for Baranowski as well at some point along the way, unless that's another 5 second on top of a 5 second. So again, potentially making contact as well at some other point. That's car number 35. And again, looking at the notes, because we get handed notes from the stewards every now and again when things happen. They're coming in thick and fast for this.
Baranowski tries to get past Joe Gleason, but has to stop to prevent himself from running into the back of Joe Gleason. You'll see it here again. Oh, maybe he does just clip him. I think he might have just clipped the back of him, not enough to turn Joe Gleason around. But my word, these two are having a good go at it.
No, absolutely. And
Baranowski's got another penalty. That's up to 10 seconds now.
Yeah, that's what I was just finding out. The car number 35. 5 seconds for car 35. 35 breaks and takes out car number 332. So, yes, again, another 5-second penalty, bringing his grand total up to 10 seconds, which means that, as of right now, that will put him down in potentially behind Redford, if the live timings on the side of our screen are to be believed. And that's Joel Sky squeezing their way through Baranowski as well. And it's not been the greatest of races for a few of these drivers, and Baranowski absolutely included. You see Atabek Ertan in the 14 Cup car, chasing down the likes of Karsten, but Karsten is a little bit further ahead, and it's that Boardman being passed there by the Cup cars. I believe that is the 69 Porsche heading down towards the final turn. That is Andy Boardman, and he is looking to try to make up as much ground as he can. Obviously, our championship leader currently for the GT4s.
Very good recovery, by the way, up into third place at this point in time.
Oh, absolutely.
Had 6 seconds between himself and Kingston Lee, and he's got enough time left in the race to potentially change that. Meanwhile, the battle for fourth keeps going on, and part of me wonders how much longer Joe Gleason can keep Baranowski behind.
Absolutely. This has just been leapfrogging this entire time. Speaking of recovery drives, Ryan, can I just throw a massive shout out to Olaf Leffer as well? Obviously being taken out took a big time by I think it was Alan Knight in the opening stages of this race, and also had a bit of an off in T1 as well, but pushed all the way through to 7th place. So fought their way through the field, fought their way through the madness that's happened around them so far, and actually coming out with a very, very respectful position so far. And I don't think that all in all, they're too far off the back of Hellman as well.
Yeah, it's definitely been some great recovery drives, and some great drives that aren't really recovery drives, but just flat out so far today. Of course, Cody Pride has got to be one of the I guess, would you say, drivers of the day? If you were giving out an award for driver of the day, I think Boardman's got to have one as well for GT4 so far for his recovery after that lap 1 incident. And if you're looking to put, I don't know, a driver of the day performance in as well. Joe McCauley's got a decent shout. Olaf Leffer, like you said, has got a decent shout. Jules Sky, I think, has got a very good shout as well. They've done an incredible job to get that car back up to 5th when they were behind some of the Cup cars after the first couple of laps. There's been some very, very good drives out here today, and beautiful sunset out here at Donington Park now as we approach 7 in the evening.
No, absolutely. And can I just make a very quick note as well that just to give an idea as just to how far ahead Cody Pride currently is. Cody Pride is currently on their way down to the final turn, whilst Banfield is at the Fogarty S's. So that's a good, almost half a lap ahead, just by keeping it as consistent as they have. And you see Banfield on screen at the moment, just making a blue flag overtake on, I believe that is Kirsten. So yeah, that's a significant gap for Banfield to make, and I dare say with 20 minutes to go that unless something absolutely terrible befalls the number 1 Porsche, I don't believe Banfield will be able to make up the gap with the current pace that they are going at. But the other thing in question, Ryan, is, I think you mentioned it right at the start of the race just before we started, is can these GT3s, there is no mandatory stop, but can they go this entire distance on 1 tank of fuel and the tyres that they have?
It's going to be an interesting one for sure. Of course, at Paul Ricard, we saw the GT3s had to pit, didn't they? And that caused some issues with the Cup cars, because the Cup cars, to my knowledge, didn't have to pit. So that caused a few overlaps there, and so far, we haven't seen any of the GT3 cars come in for a fuel stop at this point in time. The only cars that have come in to fix damage, to my knowledge. Although Jordan Fouchot has come in for a pit stop on lap 26. That was almost 10 laps ago now, but I'm not entirely sure if that was just to fix some damage or if that was for some fuel, but we'll have to see how the GT3 cars go. The GT4s should be fine to the end of the race. They can typically do, or the Cayman, sorry, can typically do 75, 80 minutes fairly easily on most of these circuits. The Cup car, it's very dependent, and then of course the GT3 car is a bit more restricted in terms of fuel. So it's going to be interesting to see how they manage it, I suppose. But I guess one of the drivers we'll be looking out for to see if they do have to pit will be someone like Cody Pride, because at this point in time, he doesn't really have much to lose if he does need to pit for fuel.
No, absolutely, and I think with just a fuel stop anyway, it's pretty safe that he might even be able to make the stop and still come out in P1. He's that far ahead currently. But as you say, Ryan, we'll need to see how that pans out as we're on the back of a car right now. Looks like Ertan is trying to number 14, yes, so looking at potentially trying to get closer to be able to make a move. Obviously a bit far back at the moment, but that might all change in the coming laps if they have the pace to keep up. In terms of lap times, it seems that Ertan was a little bit quicker than well, I'll say a little bit, but almost 3/4 of a second faster than A-Car on the last lap, so the pace seems to definitely be there. I think it's just going to be a matter of time.
Matter of time, perhaps, and we will have to see as that develops. Just over 20 minutes of this race remaining, and well, I mean, you can't say it hasn't been action-packed. We've had a bit of chaos at the start, and I think all the lap 1 incidents have now finally been assessed. I can tell you that it has got fairly busy in the stewards' room. They've had to draw a line in the room. Josh, you can see it from here. They're drawing tape on the floor, and they've kind of separated the room into 2 halves. One half looking at certain incidents and another half looking at other incidents. I think it's got that busy down there that they're kind of having to micromanage the incidents as they come in and get dealt with, which I have to say, big credit to the stewarding team today. They've done a fantastic job so far, and they really don't get the credit that they truly do deserve. I mean, no one ever sees the stewarding team. We see them I mean, we can see them from the commentary box, but no one else sees them.
No, absolutely, and we do get the odd notification as well, so they tell us exactly what they decide about things that have happened on track, which is what we can relay to you guys. That chat has been absolutely the notes that we get handed. They have been so busy this race, and I don't envy their position. So yeah, they definitely deserve a massive shout out.
Ertan continues to catch Akar, and as they make their way past some more GT4 traffic, come down towards the Fogarty S's. And something that you might have noticed is the Cup class has got significantly smaller over the course of this race. There aren't that many of them left, and Killian Ryan Meenan got involved in an incident. Mike Noble was involved in, well, Mike Noble kind of took himself out in a way. James Parker was involved in an incident. Luca Jack was involved in an incident. The Cup class has had some fairly big casualties so far.
No, absolutely. As you said, on those names, I know Whitford also had an incident earlier
as well. That's right.
So yeah, a lot of big names taking themselves out, or having been helped out of the race in terms of James Parker, I believe.
James Parker didn't survive lap 1, and unfortunately, so for him, this championship really not getting off to the greatest of starts for him.
No, but this might be the race, at least that Sundstrom was looking for. I mean, P2 in class, and that's a heck of a finish. On the back of Luigi Vita, we have Fouchot. And Vita obviously with the 5-second penalty as well. So as of right now, Fouchot will inherit 8th position. But it's all the better if you can get through, really. I mean, there is the chance to overtake Leffert as well if you can catch up. But looking on the outside of Vita now, and he is going to make it stick. Vita not putting up much of a fight. So that's just going to allow Fouchot just to try and head down and kind of just catch up. And if pit stops are needed, then potentially that is an advantage in the long run with the undercut. But we will find out when the time comes. Nico Quizma did have a penalty, but must have served it in pits. I believe actually that was actually a stop and go 10 seconds. That would have had to have been served in pits. And looking on the back of Reynolds now in the 872 car, just trying to catch up to be able to make a move.
Yeah, Paul Reynolds trying to do the best that he can so far in this race, and Nico Kuzma, who will get points for pole position. Maybe that will just be some, I don't know, a positive light in what has been a very, very difficult race for them for multiple reasons. And Andy Boardman, who is, I'm not entirely sure, I think that's a lap in front now of Nico Kuzma. Yeah, it is. Nico Kuzma down in 27th overall.
Yeah, absolutely. And it seems as well that if they are able to hold each other up a little bit, that actually brings Phil Webb into the fray as well to try and overtake for that position as well in the RK9 Motorsport car. As we've seen Jules Sky, and Jules Sky up into 4th place. Again, had a very, very rough opening to the race. And
oh, this is on Stanciu. Stanciu had a little bit of a moment coming out.
Yeah, just has to leave the space, and
very nicely done.
Oh, absolutely textbook. I mean, given the situation, car ahead of you makes a mistake, you take advantage of it. Car behind has no other choice but to leave the space for you, and there you go, job done. Very, very nicely, if I do say so myself, and making their way through traffic now. Stanchu will be looking to take that position back. They are in a position where they might be able to do that, but I'd imagine Sky's sights are now set on trying to get within that 5 seconds of Shinov.
I was just about to say, with Shinov having a 5-second penalty, Jules Sky has to get within 5 seconds. They're 11.7 behind at the moment, so 6.7 seconds to make up in the space of just under 15 minutes. That's definitely possible.
Absolutely.
And we'll have to see how that develops. What are the lap times I
Lap
wonder
times,
between
I was
Jules
just
and
about to bring that up. That was a 3/10 difference. Sky going 3/10 faster than Shinov in the last lap, but best lap 6/10 faster. So it seems that Sky definitely does have more pace on the 19 of Shinov. But
Sky.
is it going to be enough in this stage of the race? Because at this stage, tires are going to be older. The cars will be running a little bit lighter, but those two things might just balance themselves out. But I'd imagine these cars are not going to be at their best. So it's not look in terms of best lap time, but in terms of last lap time, then most definitely Sky does seem to have the pace.
Emil Stancu going fairly quick as well. And they'll be hoping that Jules Sky can kind of tow them along with and see if they can make up a place later on as well. Benjamin Heilman in 6th, by the way. Kind of finding himself in a bit of no man's land at this point in time. 7.1 seconds off of 5th, but with plenty of space behind to the likes of Olaf Leffer. Where is Leffer on track, actually? Oh, they've just come over the line. So about 7 seconds either side of Benjamin Heilman, and in a nice little bubble. And sometimes that's where you like to be in a race like this, where there's drama and chaos going on all around you. Sometimes it's just nice to be in a little bubble on your own. And speaking of races being nice and not going nice anymore, Alexander Guglia has picked up a 15-second time penalty, and I've just been handed a sheet here, by the way. 898, contact with 171, and car 171, is that Zoe Tang again? It is. So Alexander Guglia has had contact with a GT4, and that's given them a 15-second time penalty. Here is the incident in question. I believe this is Zoe Tang. Oh,
Yeah, that's a shame. You have to feel sorry for Zoe at this point. I mean, they have been absolutely, for lack of a better word, bullied so far throughout the course of this race.
It's tight here again. Zoe Tang just trying to stay out of the way of some of the bigger cars here. Unfortunately, a few laps down as well, so we'll be finishing last in the GT4 class, it would seem. But credit to them to still keep going in this race. We have lost 8 drivers from the race so far. Most of those are Cup cars. But big credit to Zoe Tang for continuing on in the race, despite the fact that they may be a few laps down after having to repair damage in the pit lane. And always a massive shout of respect from us as organisers to drivers that commit to finishing these races, no matter the odds.
No, absolutely. And by finishing, technically they still finish ahead of the likes of Mike Noble, James Parker, Mark Whitford. A lot of these big names, you're still finishing ahead of them, even if they have dropped out. So yeah, massive respect, and to see this through to the end. And it's really good to see, as we're seeing Macaulay again, just in terms of position, just.
And there it is, the first one. Ty Jolly, drive through for track limits abuse. It's finally come out. We questioned whether it would make it to the end, and just about 11 minutes from the end, Ty Jolly picks up a drive through, and judging by where that car is, I'm guessing they picked that up in the chicane.
Yeah, I mean, of all the corners to pick it up, that chicane plus drive-through penalties, name a better duo. Yeah, it's not what you want at all, but that is the magic of Donington. Absolutely, and where is that going to bring them out at? I believe that will allow Vondra to get through if they haven't already. I know. Yes, 29 Vondra, so yes, that will allow Vondra to get through into P29, so you don't ever want to push so hard going through the chicane, but at the same time you want to maximize as much as you can, and you have to just kind of respect where that limit is.
Well, Joe McCauley's had a fairly routine race so far in the Cup class, because they're a tiny bit wide there, but that's not going to bother him too much. And kind of like Cody Pride, these two have had fairly similar races, haven't they? Just not really been bothered by anyone else in their class. And oh, Adam Banfield's in the pit lane, and this looks like a stop for fuel, judging by how late in the race this is. I don't think this is damage. So Adam Banfield comes into the pit lane, stops the car. And if this is fuel, yep, looks like it is. Nowhere near long enough for to be anything other than fuel, and maybe some damage getting repaired in there as well. And obviously picking now to come into the pit lane, knowing full well that some other drivers will probably have to pit as well, judging by the looks of it. So maybe we'll see a bit of traffic in pit lane from the GT3 cars in the final 10 minutes here.
Yeah, absolutely, exactly. And at some point, Sky has also gotten past Banfield as well. But it's a case of, did Banfield just not put quite enough fuel in the car, or have they brimmed the tank and decided just to come in now for fuel? And can these cars not make it? We see Cody Pride, a race leader, coming into the pits as well. I'd imagine again for fuel. So that would mean that the car was brimmed for Banfield, and just didn't quite have enough to make it through. So Pride does have enough of a gap to not really have to worry too much. For sure, on the back of Leffer, he has caught up to the back of the 308. Taking a bit of a look on the back wing of the Thrustmaster-sponsored 308. And for sure, definitely putting Leffer under some pressure, as we see Vita with more time penalties. I believe that'll be a 15-second penalty, bringing the total up to 20.
Yep. Contact with car 332, and as I look down the list, car 332 is Ty Jolly, so that's one of the GT4 cars that Sebastian Luigi Vita, ooh! Forshook's just tapped the back of Olive Leffer, and Olive Leffer's back end has probably been touched a few too many times over the course of the last 75 minutes, and he won't be appreciating that too much. This is the contact between Ty Jolly and Sebastian Luigi Vita. Oh, that's... just thought they'd cleared them, hadn't, and that's fairly routine as well. Also, Ertan has received a drive-through penalty, by the way, and that's from the stewards. That's not for track limits. That's lap 14, turn 8. That tells you how long ago that happened. And that was with car 742. Car 14 dive bombs 742 and takes them out. Not returning the position. Oh, this is this incident from a long time ago with Joe Gleason, I believe that was. And that kind of caused a bit of a cluster of an incident there as well. So that kind of makes sense as to why that's a drive-through penalty.
Oh, absolutely, and that was fairly huge, as we see a plane going overhead. But if you're looking at the plane, you're looking in the wrong spot. You see Forshaw looking at making a move on Leffer. And Hellman is quite far up the road, actually, and I got confused with the blue color on the back of that Cup car. And coming into traffic, is this going to create a bit of the gap that Fouchard is currently looking for? Do they have the ability to be late on the brakes? They do, but it's going to be to their detriment. Potentially be able to get the better exit though with a later apex, as we see Erton serving their drive-through. And that is going to allow Leffer and Fouchard just to keep fighting this through. Fouchard just getting closer and closer, but having to back off each time, just losing a little bit of time.
You know, I've got a question in the back of my mind at the moment. Cody Pride and Adam Banfield have both come in to serve fuel stops. No one else has come in so far. Now, both of them have come in fairly late, and it's possible that they weren't on the limit of what their fuel tank would allow. And Cody Pride hasn't lost a place because he had such an incredible lead. Adam Banfield has lost 2 places because of that pit stop. But one of the questions I have at this point in time, have some of these cars got enough to go to the end? Have they fuel saved enough to get to the end of the race without having to do a fuel stop? And if that is the case, ooh, as Olaf Leffer goes off and Forshook will go through. What I'm starting to think now is, was the fuel saving strategy the right strategy? Obviously for Cody Pride, he was so quick anyway, it didn't matter. But for Shinov, who is 10 seconds in front of third place Banfield, And Jules Sky is coming to the pit lane now. For Shinov, who is 10 seconds ahead of Banfield, if he doesn't have to pit and he can make it to the end of this race, he just needs to maintain that 5-second gap, and he can get second place from Banfield.
No, absolutely. And on the flip side as well, whilst trying to push for that, is there a potential as well for them to get it wrong? And will we see a late kind of just running out of fuel entirely, just trying to take that chance? Right now, if you're Shinov, you have to consider it's only 4 minutes of the race left to go, and is it worth taking the risk to try and fuel save that little bit more and see if you can see it through to the end?
Well, we know it wasn't possible at Paul Ricard. The drivers said as much, if I can get my words out towards the end of this race. And that was reflected in the fact that they did have to do a pit stop. But the fact we're so late in the race here, and most of the GT3 field haven't done a pit stop. There's only 3 drivers come in for fuel stops. 3.5 minutes of this race remaining. Jules Sky, who was in a fantastic position, they've had to pit for fuel. That's put them down to 9th. Well, 9th provisional, 8th after the race, even if they can't get past Sebastian Lugivita. Stanciu is in the pit lane now as well, so they can't get to the end. Benjamin Heilman is in the pit lane as well. So the question is there anyone that can go to the end without refueling?
Absolutely, and in the final 3 minutes of the race, the order is still nowhere near decided, and usually you have kind of an inkling as to what's happening. And as we see Boardman getting past, is that Kingston Lee? So that's that is Kingston Lee. So that is for second place in the GT4 field. So Boardman absolutely pulling up space through the field, considering the early lap mishaps.
Recovery. Absolutely fantastic recovery, and his battle of the teammates as well.
Yeah, Googly are just kind of almost losing it as well. And I mean, Bodman for recovery of the race, I would imagine. I mean, they were sent so far back and managed to recover. And we're going to see an absolutely epic battle, I think, for the GT4. But as we see Joe Sky selling Vita a bit of a dummy almost, and absolutely able to make Vita go defensive and takes an alternate line and just about squeezes through. And what a move! That was planned. That was textbook planning.
Replay. Look at this. Goes for the cut in. Sends him the wrong way. Fantastically done by Jules Sky. And it's a Formula One textbook overtake that you've seen so many times throughout history. And Jules Sky putting on a show here in the GT3. And a fantastic overtake. That's going to go down as one of the overtakes of the race so far. But coming towards the end of this race, Shinov has not pitted. Can they make it to the end without pitting? Cody Pride will be starting the final lap of the race the next time by. So if Shinov has enough fuel, they can just go around again and they will be fine. That will cost Adam Banfield second place. Stancy is still in the pit lane.
Oh, that must be damage as well at that point in time. That's a long time to be going, and just exiting the pits now. Just an update, by the way, Fushaw, 15-second time penalty as well. So that is also going to mix up the top half of the field. Again, I'm not entirely certain what that was for, but checking the notes.
15-second time penalty for... No, that's the wrong one. No, I don't have anything for the 11-3 yet, but I'm sure the stewards will forward it to us as soon as they can.
No, absolutely, but even with less than a minute to go...
And Shinov's gone past the pit lane, so this is it. He has enough fuel to get to the end without refueling. He just needs to stay 5 seconds clear of Banfield, and it's 6.7 at the moment. He's fuel saving massively. And he's got to hope on traffic helping him as well, as Adam Banfield's trying to navigate his way through Cup cars and GT4s at the same time. This could come down to a similar situation that we saw in Formula One last season. Lando Norris and Lewis Hamilton at Austria in the first round of the season, if anyone remembers what that race was like. But does Adam Banfield have the pace? Can he catch Shinov enough? Has Shinov done enough? Is it going to be enough? We're not quite sure. 7.5 seconds. The gap has gone up. That looks like it should be enough. Cody Pride crosses the line, by the way. He wins here tonight. Dominant performance. Driver of the day. Masterclass from him. Joe McCauley. He started the final lap of the race for the Cup car class as well, but looking back
Shinov
at second
crossing the
place.
line now. Sorry, sorry to interrupt there. Shinov crossing the line now. So was that enough? I believe it was. And sorry for interrupting, Ryan. You continue that train of thought.
It's fine because Banfield's going to come across the line now. 7.6 seconds. It is enough. Shinov takes second. Banfield's pit stop means he can only get third, but it's a well-deserved podium. And Andrew Pike is the winner in GT4. Fantastic recovery from Andy Boardman, who will no doubt finish in second. And definitely does, with Kingston Lee rounding out the podium in GT4. Sundstrom and Guglia cross the line in the Cup cars. And I believe Carsten will inherit third place from Guglia due to that 15-second time penalty. And Joe McCauley can take the final lap of the race as cool as he likes.
Absolutely, and what a race it has been. I think half the cars have time penalties, pretty much. Looking at the timing sheet currently as to where it is. And just wow.
My word, and towards the end, we mentioned number 11 of Forshook's got a 15-second time penalty. That was for an incident on lap 31, turn 9, involving car 669. And car 669 is Vincent Valentin in the GT4 class, so it's just another case of two classes coming together where they shouldn't, and Forshook's was judged to be the guilty party in that particular incident. But here are the race results as they were. So for GT3, Cody Pride out there, dominant, masterclass, disgustingly good, whatever terminology you wish to use. 27 seconds. That's including a pit stop, by the way, which he had to serve in the race. Masterclass from him here today. No other word to describe it. Then Shinov in second with the 5-second penalty. Does mean that he keeps that second place. Banfield will round out the podium. Olaf Leffer and Forshook's in the top 5. Jules Sky only manages 6th, but still a very, very good recovery. Antonio Serradi and Benjamin Haleman in 7th and 8th. In 9th for the GT3 class will be Sebastian Luigi Vita, and rounding out the top 10 in the GT3 class will be Emil Stancia. Panos Karatas and Alan Knight did not make the end of the race. Then in the Cup class, Joe McCauley pretty much had a masterclass performance as well, followed by Mikhail Sundstrom, who did well to defend his position. Carsten inherits third from Guglia due to Guglia's penalty. Akar and Ertan finished 5th and 6th. Hilakallio 7th. Killian Ryan Meenan didn't make the end of the race, nor did Noble, Panker, Whitford, Lukaszek, or Parker. Massive DNFs in the Cup class. And then GT4s, it's Andrew Pike who takes the win. Fantastic recovery from Boardman as well. Probably my driver of the day. Kingston Lee rounds out the podium with Baranowski, who finally got past Gleason. Van Aken, Redford, Valentine, Kuzma, Reynolds in the top 10. Phil Webb, Vondra, Ty Jolly, and Jakobsen all rounding out. And Zoe Tang last as well. 5 laps down, but still finishes the race. And I think I don't think the drivers are the only ones that are going to need a nice cool down after that one, Josh.
No, absolutely. There's just been so much going on, so much to keep up with, and I've got to admit, my throat kind of hurts after that one. Just so many places to be looking all at once, and you couldn't have asked for a more action-packed race, though, can you?
I don't think so, and it really, really did deliver. Quite a lot of incidents today, and I think there's going to be a few words given out to the drivers after some of the poor standards that we did see out today. A few very, very unnecessary incidents happening between drivers, but, well, it's up to them to learn from their mistakes, and we'll have to see if in a week's time they have learned from their mistakes. But if you've been enjoying the racing around here, we definitely have some more racing coming up. Nothing happening tomorrow, although we will be having some Tuesday racing coming your guys' way sooner rather than later. Going to be some race room content, I believe, coming your guys' way. But on Wednesday, Diamond Drive Cup is on a break week, so unfortunately, nothing on Wednesday again. You're going to have to wait 2 days, guys, if you want some more RCI racing action. But on Thursday, the GT4 class, or GT4 Championship, sorry, I'm used to this championship now already, comes back, and the GT4 Championship will be at the Hungaroring for round 3. Might have George Smith back in the box. I know Mike Jones had to take over for him on that day, and of course Sam Wright will be in the box as well. Then on Friday, nothing happening again because pre-qualifying is taking place for the GT3 World Championship Season 2. Then on Saturday, it will be a bit of a double header. I believe we're going to have the charity race, the RCI charity race, the Staff X Community race, where staff members are teamed up with community drivers, and it's all in support of charity. Going to be trying to raise $1,000, I believe, is the target, and you can find more information on the Discord as well. And then, of course, on Saturday, it'll also be the second round of the Night Owl Championship at Spa, so that one is going to be continuing on as well. And then, of course, on Sunday, we have the one-off event. Words struggling at the moment, and that is the big boys versus the small boys. It's going to be the GTR, the Bentley, and the BMW GT3s paired up against the Alpines and the Ginettas in GT4. That's going to be happening at Silverstone on Sunday. Get yourself signed up for that one, and I think we might have a live stream available for that one on Sunday as well. But plenty of action coming up, and of course, well, we'll be back next week on Monday. We'll be at Kyalami for round 3 of the championship. We'll be heading over to South Africa. And hopefully we'll be able to see a lot more of exciting multi-class action. A big thank you to our partners and sponsors, Race Department, AK Informatica, Raceway Speed Labs, and Sim Racing GP. You can find out more about all of them in the links in the description. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe as well if you enjoyed the stream, and if you want to see more and let us know we're doing a very good job. We do appreciate it, and leave a comment as well. We always read the comments. But from myself, from our wonderful broadcaster Jake Coombs, who has soldiered on tonight, from Josh Devonshire, who's joined me alongside, from George Smith, who's been in the chat with Harry Conway and Sebastian Brunier, from all of our wonderful stewards who've done a fantastic job here today working through the incidents, and from everyone else here at Racing Club International. Thank you very much for watching the stream, and we hope to see you next week.